Welcome back, Commanders. My name is Alchrist, and today I'll be briefing you on your brand new T-Doll, the number one always positive idol, Vepley. Vepley is a Vanguard shotgun blasting overly cheerful doll. She has high movement, and a skill kit makes her a jack of all trades. She has single target, AoE, debuffs, displacement. She can do a bit of everything. I will mention that in all my guides, I'll be referring to Confector's Index as skill points, since this is much easier to understand. Vepley's skill point generation mechanic is tied to her passive, Idle Talent. She will always regain 1 skill point per turn, and she gets an extra kill point for each instance of damage she does. She will also do 20% more damage to any enemies that have a movement down debuff. And lastly, if she attacks after moving 5 tiles, she will actually apply the movement down debuff herself before the damage, meaning she will get the 20% damage bonus automatically. Vepley's basic attack is Live Interaction. It has a range of 5, deals physical damage equal to 80% of her attack, and reduces 1 stability. Vepley's active skill 1 is All Out Performance, which has a 2-turn cooldown. She selects a direction to attack from her position, and deals physical damage equal to 75% of her attack, and reducing 1 stability to a 3-tile wide by a 5-tile long AoE. This attack will hit the first enemy in each column, starting from Vepley, and they'll also be pushed back 4 tiles. This attack will also destroy any cover caught in the attack that isn't in the adjacent row to Vepley. As you can see here, the enemy in the back row isn't being hit because he is being blocked by the first enemy from Vepley. But from this angle, they're both getting hit. Vepley's active skill 2 is Exclusive Stage, which costs 1 skill point. It targets 1 enemy at range 5, dealing physical damage equal to 150% of her attack and reducing 2 stability. If they do not have a cover bonus, she'll actually remove 2 buffs from them as well. To clarify, it doesn't matter if the target is behind cover, as long as she deals damage to an enemy that doesn't have cover bonus. You can check if a target has a cover bonus by this icon before attacking. If this is missing, they do not have a cover bonus. Vepley's ultimate is Infectious Enthusiasm, which costs 4 skill points. She can target an enemy or a tile within 5 range, dealing AoE damage equal to 100% of her attack to all enemies within 2 tiles of the selected tile. She will also apply Overzealous and Vuln to all enemies caught in the AoE. Enemies with Overzealous will take 30% more damage from Vepley, and Vuln will increase damage taken by 20% from any source. When deploying Vepley onto the field, the key element to playing her is utilizing her kit to amplify her team's damage by applying debuffs. As a Vanguard, she has a high base movement of 8. Use it to flank her enemies. Clever use of her active skill 1 will keep your cover intact while destroying opponents' cover. And even if the cover is indestructible, she'll still knock them out of it. When it comes to a basic rotation, she doesn't really have one. Instead, use a kit based on the situation she is faced with. For the most part, she wants to be moving 5 tiles and spamming ultimate as much as possible onto a group of enemies to apply movement down and vuln debuffs. If you can hit at least 3 targets, you can just keep spamming her ult. Use active skill 1s to get enemies out of cover, destroy cover, or instantly kill enemies into a ledge. It can also be used to regenerate fast skill points if she can hit multiple enemies. Otherwise, use her active skill 2 for single target damage. It's unlikely that you would ever use basic attack since you get a free skill point for active skill 2 every turn, but if you're saving skill points for some reason, then use basic attack as filler. Onto her pros and cons. She is a jack of all trades. She has a little bit of everything built into her kit. High movement, AoE, single target, debuffs, destroys cover, knockback. She has a little of everything. Being able to apply damage increased debuffs to a group of enemies makes her an excellent team player. And finally, she can remove buffs from enemies. As for her cons, she is a master of none. While she has a little bit of everything, she is outclassed by dolls that specialize in it. Unlike other Vanguards who can hit and run to safety, plus have something built into their kit to help survive, Vepley doesn't have anything of the sort and can die very easily. She has no phase elements. As with most physical only dolls, she lacks phase weakness bonuses. Vepley's best weapon is the signature, Heartseeker, which will improve her DPS and her survivability. It increases damage of any ability that uses skill points, and its trait gives her Quick Barrier when she destroys cover. Quick Barrier reduces the next targeted damage she takes by 60%. Its effect Encore will do 10% of her attack as fixed damage when she uses an active skill. She will also do 10% more damage to targets with movement down debuffs, which she easily applies. And lastly, the next enemy with a movement down debuff that attacks Vepley will get a damage reduction debuff for 1 turn before the damage is dealt. If you got the battle pass, she can use the Expeditionary Pigeon. It has the same quick barrier trait, and its effect Shotgun Suppression will increase damage dealt to enemies that are at max stability or are exposed. It also applies stability loss to the target, which will add 1 stability damage to all attacks for 1 turn. This effect can only happen once every 3 turns. She can use the Mezzaluna. It has attack boost and the same quick barrier trait. Its effect Perfect Recipe restores 2 stability when recovering from stability break. If her stability is over 10, it increases her damage by 20%, and at the end of each turn, applies attack down on the highest attack enemy within 6 tiles. This effect is pretty difficult to maintain on Vepley, but you're mainly using Mezzaluna for its stats. For standard options, the M1 Super 90 synergizes really well. It has the same quick barrier trait when destroying cover, and Wings Unfurl will increase damage by 10% for each skill point used, capping at 20%. The last option is a namesake, Vepr 12. It has the same quick barrier trait, and Dress to Impress will give a random buff at the start of her turns, either AoE boost, or skill point or basic attack boost, increasing its respective damage for that turn. Its uncontrollable nature makes her namesake a pretty bad option, but all the other weapons are locked behind events or gacha, so you just have to use it if you have no other option. Her attachments follow the DPS archetype, focusing first on attack percent, attack, crit rate, crit damage. A reminder that the only attachment that can have crit damage is the muzzle. When it comes to which attachment sets to farm, the set you're looking for is Physical Boost. As with all other physical only DPSs, this is the only set she benefits from. It increases all of her attacks by 20%. You can use the generic DPS set Phase Strike. It increases damage by 15% as long as they have an elemental debuff of some kind, but only use this set if you can field a doll that can inflict the debuff, preferably one that can inflict it in an AoE. When it comes to affixed keys, the best ones to obtain are 201, Safe Viewing Distance, which increases the amount of stability reduced by 2 if they have a movement debuff, and 401, Fortune of an Idol. If there are no allies within 6 tiles of Vepley, she will gain Quick Barrier. Her third key is Flexible. 203, Containment Zone Tour is interesting. It changes the AoE of active skill 1 from 3x5 to 5x3, which means it goes from shooting distance to shooting wide. It would be map Pacific if you use this one, and it can technically hit 5 enemies instead of just 3. You use 603 Stage Commitment when versing large bosses. She would do 15% fixed damage whenever she applies a movement debuff to them. And 603 Stress Resistance Training will reduce AoE damage if she is behind cover. Fixed key 403 Dino Dash is pretty hard to utilize effectively, and I wouldn't unlock it unless you really want her common key. She needs to apply a movement down, and then she can use active skill 2 to a target behind cover, just so she can ignore 10% of it. I would just rather use a high movement to ignore the cover altogether. Her common key is Heart Melting Strike. It gives attack boost and increases damage to enemies that have less mobility than her. Really strong common key for all Vanguard dolls. Diane Shattering Stone and Silk gives movement up 1 every second turn, which can help with positioning. Otherwise, any common key that increases attack would work. Next, we'll have a quick look at the Fortifications. At V1, if her active skill 1 hits 2 or more targets, she gains 3 movement after the attack. Great for repositioning her to a safe location. At V2, her active skill 2 is a guaranteed crit to any target with a movement debuff. At V3, the Overzealous debuff will apply before the ultimate damage goes off, meaning she will get the extra 30% damage right away. At V4, she only needs to move 3 tiles to apply the movement down debuff instead of having to move 5. At V5, passive will apply movement denied to all enemies that already have a movement debuff, which restricts their movement altogether. And at V6, if her ultimate only hits 1 target, they will be stunned. To finish off, we'll have a quick look at suitable teammates to field along Vepley. Peritya is a good sub DPS. Vepley can easily trigger Peritya's action support, and together they can debuff an area of enemies at once. You could also use Sabrina, as she synergizes with Vepley very well. Her active skill 1 and 2 also apply movement debuffs. Any of the sustains would work, except Ksenia may have a hard time keeping up with her, as she doesn't have a long range heal. Otherwise, Vepley can flex onto the 4th slot of any team that you need a damage amplifier. Here are some examples of team compositions. And that about wraps up this character briefing for Vepley. I hope this guide helps, and if you have any other suggestions on a build of teammates, make sure to leave a comment below. Until next time, Commanders.